Welcome into another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube channel. This time, we're bringing you Dynasty Sells. If you like the channel, make sure to subscribe and leave a like and a comment on this video. Let's jump into our first sell. A.J. Brown. So let's start with the obvious. Brown is an elite NFL wide receiver. That has not changed. But I do think we're getting to a potential sell point for Brown because his value is a little high considering his overall situation. As we know, once he was traded from the Titans to the Eagles, he's had two straight stellar seasons. 2022, 88 catches, 1,496 yards, 11 touchdowns, 5.6 catches and 88 yards a game. 2023 went up to 106 catches, but only 1,456 yards, 7 touchdowns, 6.2 catches and 85.6 yards a game. However, the entire Eagles offense changed in 2023 after their Week 10 bye. Brown suddenly went from one of the best wide receivers in the league to a far different player. Let's look at the splits. Weeks 1 through 9, 7.4 catches, 111.7 yards a game, 6 total touchdowns. Weeks 11 to 17, 5.4 catches a game, 63.1 yards a game, and 1 touchdown. Now, I'm not saying this is all A.J. Brown's fault, because I don't think it is. But the Eagles' offense was figured out by opposing defenses. Hurts struggled as a passer, Jalen Hurts. He just had 8 passing touchdowns over the back half. He did have 8 rushing touchdowns, so he was still good for fantasy, but not for supporting the fantasy weapons. Clearly, the Eagles want to run the ball more in 2024 because they replaced DeAndre Swift with Saquon Barkley. They're going to run the ball more. What that means for Brown, we'll see. Now, let's look at Brown's value on Keep Trade Cut, wide receiver 7. I also have him, wide receiver 7. So I've noticed that the Keep Trade Cut value is starting to drop a little bit. Earlier in the offseason, I've heard about Brown being up at like wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't see that anymore. He has dropped, which is good. But given some recent trades, I still think his overall value is too high, even if it's not high among wide receivers. So let's look at some trade ideas. And these are all 12-team Superflex, unless I specify otherwise. A.J. Brown in 202 for Kyler Murray in 210. I like, as weird as this is, I like the idea of going to the secure quarterback on a long-term contract over the wide receiver, even if I have to pay a little bit extra for it. This was one of my favorite deals that I saw. Another one, A.J. Brown in 210 for Jared Goff in 2025 first. I think I would just rather have the quarterback in the 25 first over A.J. Brown in the 210. A.J. Brown for 104. I would rather take my chances on the quarterback in this year's class there. A.J. Brown in a mid-second for Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you can pay up to get Amon-Ra out of A.J. Brown, I would absolutely do that. And then, I don't know if this one you can really do, but A.J. Brown in an early second for CeeDee Lamb. I would love to get CeeDee Lamb, who I just think is 2 years back in his career trajectory. And I like his situation right now more than A.J. Brown's. Now, Brown turns 27 in the summer. I'm not saying he's going to be in rapid decline, but if he is the second half of A.J. Brown from 2023, in 2025, he will not be valued as a dynasty wide receiver 1. He will be 28. He will be coming off a season and a half of not as great production. The value won't be there. So I think this is a good time to capitalize on him while he's a preeminent asset, because I'm not sure that that's going to be the case next year. Next up, Travis Etienne. And I talked about him on the running back tiers episode last week. You should go back and check it out. I have zero interest in Etienne at his price, anywhere near it. I'm just not interested. I think he's way overvalued. He missed his entire rookie season in 2021 with the Liz Frank injury. Then he came out in 2022 and was great. 220 carries, 1,125 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5.1 yards a carry, and 35 catches for 316 yards. Unfortunately, he did not duplicate that efficiency in 2023. He did have more volume, 267 carries, but just 1,008 yards. He scored the 11 touchdowns. That's great. 3.8 yards a carry, 58 catches, 478 yards, and a touchdown. Now, the volume is there. A lot of catches. That's good. A lot of carries. That's good. Lack of efficiency. Is he really going to have 11 touchdowns again? Is he really going to have 58 catches again? I don't know. The Jaguars have never found a true complement for Travis Etienne after they traded away James Robinson in 2022. He's been a true workhorse ever since. Tank Bigsby was a disaster in 2023. Dearness Johnson is just a journeyman. Both players averaged 2.6 yards a carry. They were both putrid. The Jaguars cannot just repeat 2023 again. Either Tank Bigsby needs to improve, or they need to get someone else in here to compete for touches. They could take a running back in round 4 where they have 2 picks. Etienne's contract expires after 2025, assuming the Jaguars pick up this fifth-year option, which I think they will. I don't see them extending him early, especially with him just having one good season out of 3 years in the NFL. And, for that reason, I think he's a little bit overvalued, especially among overall. Again, KTC, running back 9. I also have him running back 9. So the problem is not the price among running backs. The problem is you can get a lot out of him in a cross-positional or draft pick trade. Here are some trade ideas. I have a lot for him. Travis Etienne for 25 first. Again, 12-team Superflex. I'd rather just take my chances on that asset. 108. If I could turn him into JJ McCarthy in this class, I would do that. Here, a tight end premium trade. This one I thought was crazy. I saw this in the DLF Trade Finder. Travis Etienne and Cole Kmet for Brandon Ayuk and Jaden Reed. I don't get it. I'd rather have Ayuk over Etienne by a lot, Reed over Kmet by a lot. So I'd love to do this one. Another one I saw in the Trade Finder, Etienne and 201 for 102 and a 1 QB to give 201 and add it to Etienne to get Malik Neighbors. I would absolutely do that. And then some suggestions of wide receivers I'd like to trade to from best to worst. Nico Collins, who I talked about as a buy last week. Jordan Addison, who I think is undervalued right now and is going to get revalued when the Vikings add a quarterback. And Jackson Smith and Jigba, who I also think is undervalued. And maybe you could even get something with Jackson Smith and Jigba for Travis Etienne. I just love to get out from under Etienne. And I think people think he's younger than he is. He missed a year due to injury, played 4 years at Clemson, so they don't realize that he's 25. He's the same age as Jonathan Taylor. I should have no interest in Etienne at his price, keeping him in any roster build or anything along those lines. Next up, Jonathan Taylor. Speaking of Taylor, another player I discussed on the running back tiers video last week, and I'm terrified of him in his current cost. He's 25. We talked about that. He does have a long-term deal already, but that deal is only ironclad through 2025. The Colts can easily move on after that. So he's just got 2 guaranteed years on the team. And he hasn't been his best over the last 2 years. In 2022, 192 carries, 681 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4.5 yards a carry, 28 catches, and 143 yards in passing game. 2023, kind of similar efficiency, similar lack of passing game usage. As you might know, that's not comparable to 2020 and 2021. 2020, his rookie year, 11 touchdowns, 5 yards a carry, even 36 catches. And 2021 was the nuts year, 332 carries, 1,811 yards, 18 touchdowns, 5.5 yards per carry, 40 catches, 360 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But as you can see, he put together volume, efficiency, and his best catching stats in 2021. He's never done it in any other year. It's his best season in carries per game, yards per carry, receiving yards per game, and touchdowns. Hasn't duplicated it in 2022 or 2023 and missed time in both seasons, nor has he done much as a pass catcher either of the last 2 years. I don't think the rushing touchdowns are going to be 18 with Anthony Richardson stealing goal line carries, nor will the passing game be there as Richardson will scramble instead of dumping off. So KTC value, running back 5. Again, you'll notice a pattern. I have him at running back 5. But the problem, again, is not the price among running backs. The problem is the price among overall assets. These running backs, these tier 2 running backs, we talked about it on the last episode, are all overvalued. Taylor or Etienne, they're both bad. Depending on which source of value you look at, which one is more overvalued. But those are definitely the 2 biggest offenders. Let's look at some trade ideas to get out from under Jonathan Taylor. I like this one. I saw this one on the Trade Finder. Jonathan Taylor in 111 for Bijan Robinson. I would take Bijan Robinson there. I'd much rather have Bijan Robinson. Jonathan Taylor for Chris Olave. Chris Olave, I think, is undervalued. I think people don't appreciate what he's done. They just don't like his quarterback situation. Still very young, very talented, and done more in the NFL than Drake London, who a lot of people would prefer. Jonathan Taylor for Drake May. I saw this one in the Trade Finder. It's interesting. Trade for a rookie player. I would probably do that. I'd take the quarterback there. Jonathan Taylor for Drake London. Yes, I would prefer Chris Olave, but I would easily take Drake London over Jonathan Taylor. And then Jonathan Taylor for 106. You probably get Romo Dunze there, and I would rather have a Dunze over JT pretty easily. So I just think there's a lot of better ways to spend high-end capital than spending it on Taylor. I'm fine using Taylor to trade up to a younger running back like Robinson, like we talked about. Last sell, Zay Flowers. Now, Flowers is a different type of sell for me. I'm scared that the Ravens will add another wide receiver highly. Their passing game is so thin. Plus, I think a lot of people have forgotten that Flowers was under investigation earlier in the offseason for domestic violence issues. After Rashee Rice's incident, I think that took center stage. I think a lot of people have forgotten about what happened with Flowers. I don't think it's going to result in any suspension or any issues, but it's something to consider. Flowers was also not my favorite prospect in the 2023 NFL draft. He turned 23 before the season started, wasn't an early declare. His only really good productive season was the last one, but the Ravens picked him in the first round. He had a good rookie year. 77 catches, 858 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4.8 catches, and 53.8 yards a game. But there are some red flags. One, his role never grew throughout the season. Oddly enough, for a rookie, he did better at the beginning than at the end, which is very strange. That's almost true for almost no rookies ever like that. 5.5 catches and 57.6 yards a game in the first 8 weeks, just 4.1 catches and 49.6 yards per game in the second 8 weeks. So they saw him playing a big role and then gave him less work. He did worse when Mark Andrews was out at the end of the season, which is also scary. The Ravens also had no compliments to Flowers and Andrews in 2023. OBJ was their second leading receiver. Rashad Bateman never developed. Nelson Aguilar was the starter at times. So almost every mock draft I've seen has the Ravens taking a wide receiver either at 30 or 62 overall. That player has to be an improvement on what they've had because it literally cannot be worse. Additionally, I expect the Ravens to run the ball even more in 2023. They lost J.K. Dobbins in week 1 in 2024. They lost J.K. Dobbins in week 1 in 2023. Gus Edwards was fine. Justice Hill didn't get it done. Keaton Mitchell got hurt. They still have Hill and Mitchell returning. Mitchell's returning from injury, but they added workhorse Derrick Henry, who I think is going to run the ball a lot in this offense. I also expect them to add to the running back room in round 3 or 4. So for those reasons, I just don't see how Flowers lives up to this wide receiver 19 price. I think that's way too high. I have him in wide receiver 22. And honestly, I think even that might be too high. The Ravens offense just doesn't support a wide receiver 1 unless that player's elite. And I think we saw that even though Flowers flashed early, the Ravens never grew his role or wanted to use him as an elite wide receiver 1. So some trade ideas. Flowers for 108, I would absolutely do that. Flowers for Jackson Smith-Njigba plus anything. I just think Jackson Smith-Njigba is a far better player than Zay Flowers. And, let's not overreact to the situation. Zay Flowers for 25 second or 25 first. I saw this in my Patreon Discord. It's a real trade. And Zay Flowers for Tank Dell and 24 early third. I just like a lot more of what I saw from Tank Dell. Even though his situation is crowded, he has a better quarterback for fantasy football for his passing stats. So I would much rather have Tank Dell there. Now, if you like the video so far, make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. I also have a few Patreon questions. You can send those in at patreon.com/fantasyadvice. The link is up there and in the show description. And let's jump into those right away. What's the rookie draft strategy for someone with a top 5 pick this year? Let's just say needs are everywhere position-wise, but would you go quarterback, running back, wide receiver, whatever? We always draft for value and trade for need. In Superflex leagues, there's a clear order at the top. Caleb Williams, 101. Marvin Harrison Jr., 102. Then Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and Malik Neighbors from 103 to 105. Roma Dunse, Brock Bowers, and J.J. McCarthy's coming after that. I can tell you I'm not taking any running back in the top 5 pick in any format. I don't care where they go. None of the running backs are good enough prospects to be worth that price. When is the time to trade veterans during a rebuild? In general, the time is whenever you can get the most value. Right now, for the example, Chris Godwin, I would lean towards trading him. He's already 28. I don't see his value going up over time. If you're in a rebuild, he's too old. I would suggest moving on while you can get the best return, which is probably right now, instead of waiting until later. Should Jaylen Warren and Devin Singletary be viewed as starting running backs? No, I don't think so. Warren is a clear 50-50 split. I talked about this a little bit on the running backs episode as well. And then, Arthur Smith has a Cordero Patterson obsession, which could hurt as well. And as for Devin Singletary, he's more of a backup. The Giants have been linked to every top running back in the draft. I think they will take one at either 47 or 70 overall, or as part of a trade up or trade down somewhere in the second or third round. And whoever they take, I would lean that they're going to be the starter over Devin Singletary sooner rather than later, because he hasn't been overall that impressive in his NFL career. And his contract's only $5.5 million a year, so he doesn't have to be a starter at that price. Last question. What are the chances that Brandon Ayuk is a 49er at the start of the season? So there was fake news on Twitter today. Someone was saying that, I have sources. I know. He's going to be traded. Liar. He doesn't know anything. He's a liar. Just making it up. So then when it happens, he can claim credit. So, these people on Twitter, they're liars. Don't listen to them unless they are right for a very clear publication that you've heard of. They don't have sources. So there's liars, all of them. So I don't know. At this point, I think if the 49ers trade Ayuk, it will happen before or during the NFL draft so they can draft a replacement. They don't really have a reason to trade him. They can afford to give him money in 2025 since that's the last year of Purdy's rookie deal. And then they can keep probably Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, and CMC, all of them through 2025 while Purdy's still cheap. And then in 2026, someone would have to go. But they probably want to run it back for the next 2 years while they can. If the 49ers trade Ayuk, the teams to watch are the Jaguars, 17th overall pick, Steelers, 20th, and maybe the Bills, 28th overall. But I can't see the 49ers pulling the trigger unless it's on the clock with a wide receiver that they know that they want. I don't think 28 would be enough. 20th is probably about the right price. I don't know if they'd have to add something to get up to 17. I'd say a 60% chance that Ayuk stays. But if the NFL draft comes and goes without a trade, I'd raise it to 90%. I think the trade's either going to happen during the NFL draft or not at all. So that's my take on Brandon Ayuk. Now, if you like the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And also hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about what videos I'm going to be releasing. I'll announce this during the NFL draft. I'm going to be recording videos as the draft goes and releasing them. So it's a great time to check out all of my content. I'm going to cover, hopefully, every single player drafted on day 1 and day 2. It's a tall order. It's going to probably be like 10 videos. So look forward to that because I'm going to be dropping a lot of content. You're going to have to really keep up with everything I'm doing here. And I'm going to split it up into short videos so it's digestible for you guys. But until next time, I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all later. Peace out.